All right, just a reminder, if anybody has questions here in Iowa City, you have to push your button in order to let Ankeny hear you. So I'll try to remind you and or remind you to repeat your question if you don't. I did a quick just tutorial of what we're going to talk about. Mostly what I'm talking about today is just the overview of if you want to go in and view the screen and see what's in there and all that. We're not going to go through all the steps of adding items and that. I mean, we could at the end if anybody wanted to see it, but most people here just want to be able to know how to find things or look at the order screen. And since we have a new one up, well, not up yet, it's in the test system, so hopefully we'll have it active soon. So what you have right now is just the main screen, and you would go to access this, you go to the inventory order, and then you see all those different options. You would go to the send out order, and then you'll see the screen in front of you. There's about 5, 6 new features that are on the screen. You might, if you've seen it before, you might notice that it's a little bit different. So I'm just going to go through the things that have changed initially. So under the status, we've now added, let's see, query. We've now added a on hold button. So when we're doing an order and we don't want it processed yet by either central services areas, we can put it on hold and then continue on and complete it and then take it back off hold when we're ready to process it or have it go through the system. We've had times where we're in the middle of an order and we get a phone call and we're almost done with it and then the client wants something, and so this will be a great feature. The other tabs that have changed would be the organization tab. It is it's been expanded to actually where before we had a report to, bill to tab, and I'm trying to remember even how it works. But anyway, so now we can do, you do an add row, and you can go down and say, is it a bill to, secondary report, so someone else that you wanted to give it to, or a report to. And all of these options are queryable. So if you didn't know one and you knew the other, you could query by them. And then you would have your attention, and you know, once you pick one, you would then be able to find out.
Say what those headings are so we can read them.
The headers are, just says the type, so whether it's report to, bill to, oops, that's right there. And then attention, name, and then the address, so it's apartment suite, address, state zip, city, state zip, and then no phone numbers, so on this particular spot, so. And so those are that would be that tab has changed dramatically for that. Now we can query by that. The next tab, aux tab, is the next aux data, and nothing changed on that.
Yeah, it's just that you can't add duplicate aux groups now. So either way, you know, not directly, not through a panel.
Yeah.
So-
So if you go to add one and it's already there, it's not going to let you.
Yeah, it's just going to show you a message at the end, at the bottom. So you should be able to tell which one it is.
Okay. So did you guys get that in Ankeny?
Go over that again real quick.
Okay. So in the past, you might you give the example because Rhonda will explain when it happened.
Thanks. Okay, in the past, when you option duplicated, it would pull in an extra aux data, and so then we'd have the environmental criteria on the original order, plus they would put a duplicate the environmental criteria on it again, so there'd be 2 groups, and now Alan Carr has eliminated that. so that if it's already on there once, it won't be on there again. And we've had a lot of issues with it, with all the orders.
And we've had
So
some
far.
final reports that end up going out.
Yes, final reports are bad too, so.
So no. So that makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so then the next tab that has changed is the test tab. And so we have this item number, and I think I'm gonna have Alan kind of explain this real quick so that he can explain what he kind of did.
Okay, well, everybody can hear me fine, right? Hello?
You have to let go of the mic in order to hear them.
Let go of the mic.
Oh, like this?
You guys hear Alan Carr?
Can you hear me now?
Now you have
Okay.
to,
You have to push it when you talk and let go to hear them.
Yeah,
All right.
like a
Okay.
walkie-talkie.
Anyway, so what we did with this tab was that basically we added the capability to select reportable analytes, in such a way that the way they're defined by default on the test screen can be overloaded or overridden on this screen. So if there is an analyte that's marked as reportable in the test, on this screen you should be able to say this is not reportable for this test for this particular order. So that's what you should be able to do with this new feature. So if you go ahead and select a test and just say, just enter, press enter. Yeah, so it'll bring in all the analytes defined in the test, and it will mark those which are marked in the test by default, barring the supplemental ones. So all the optional and read-only and required analytes will be marked exactly as they are in this list. And then, so if they're reportable, then they will be reportable here and so on. The checkbox means reportable. So when you select or unselect one of these, what that will do is when the order gets imported on the login screen, the analytes that are marked as reportable or not reportable on that screen will depend on how you check or uncheck them on this screen. So basically, if Sherry goes in and says total trihalomethanes, which is the fourth from the top right now, is reportable, when the order gets imported, when the sample gets filled from this order, even though this analyte was marked as not reportable in the test, it will be imported or marked as reportable for the sample. Does that make sense?
lift up your key.
Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So if you scroll up a little bit, and then the item number at the very left, what that means is that when you load the sample from this order, this test will get added to the sample item with that number. So this test volatiles EPA 50. Okay, you just
I
removed
pushed
it.
the wrong one.
Okay. So, yeah, so when the order gets, when the sample gets filled from this order, then this test will get added under sample item number 0. So that's what it means, and by default, all the tests get added under the first sample item, that is the one with item number 0. But you can change that item number to anything you want, and then, that test will get added under the sample item with that number if that sample item is present. If it isn't, then it'll get added under the 0th one. That is the first one. Okay. So that's basically what it's for. So any questions so far?
I have one. When you add, okay, so you're adding an analyte to an item number, which you said is 0. How do you know item number 0 is a certain container, or,
That's
oh, that's the next tab?
that's on the next tab. We'll see that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I delete the one.
So the item number has nothing to do with the bottle number?
Yeah.
No.
You'll see how it works
All
out
right,
on the
so
next tab.
now we'll go to the container tab.
Gotcha.
It'll make more sense. So at this point, we have 2 tests logged in. We have the volatiles, and we have the selected analytes, and then we have the metals. What? I didn't know if I could do that. I was trying to do that. This one?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we have the metals. And we have the few metals, as you noticed, that we checked. So, under the container tab, we now have the containers and nothing there yet. So we're gonna add a row. And for the container, we'll have a 15 that we want to add. And then now we can add the sample type as well, which we weren't able to do before. We were, well, it matches up with it right now.
It has some checking.
We'll add one for the other one. So if you notice, the item number goes from 0 to 1. I know, 'cause we were going to-
No, because you need to add all 3 of the 15s. Three different types. Okay. That's not fair. You were supposed to do this. Okay, the new process is that instead of putting how many, the quantity, you have to put in each individual sample container. So Alancar's got a duplicate key, so when you get 15s or 45s or the wastewater ones that have 2 cyanide or 2 phenols or whatever, you can just hit the duplicate key and it automatically puts them in one in. So on the 15s, you've got 3 15s, and then on the 7, you only need 1. So, do you want to do the pop-out one?
Sure.
Okay, we're going to do the pop-out. This is something new. This is what I like the most. The volatiles, you can see the item numbers here right now are 0s, and the items are the containers. So you can change this, keep it with 0, because it's the first vial. And the other 2 vials are ones that may or may not get used, so you just don't worry about those. But the 7 for the metals, you can come over here and change that to a 3 so that it matches this item number. Was there anything else with that?
Where does your trip blank come in here?
I don't know if we have anything for the trip blanks, do we?
I'm not sure what that means.
Because, are they still being a sample, the trip blanks? So it wouldn't be on here anyway, would it?
No, well, and I don't know if we need to worry about that right now.
Let's see, the
For-
trip
for
blanks, we
everybody-
haven't been doing
For
anything else
the
anyway.
purpose of just viewing.
Okay, so then we've got the items, which is the stuff that we send out, which is pretty much the same. think the reason that we're not doing the trip lengths is because they are part of the inventory item. They've got 3 vials and then a trip blank. Then we add the row for Yankees. Shipping.
Shipping didn't change, items,
Shipping didn't change.
sample notices and everything.
The customer, as far as the shipping goes, whatever you want to tell Kevin Berry, whoever's doing it, the customer is the same. You put in whatever they want, you make the list. The internal, that's the same. We normally put in, add a note, we put order, and then we put phone call or email or whatever. I'm not sure what Ankeny does, that's what we normally do. The sample, this sample note is for the benefit of us that answer the phones, and we know the client wants either called when the sample comes in, they need this thing faxed or whatever. We can put that in there, or if there's a price quote or something that goes with it, or if it's some kind of project they're doing, we can put that in there and it will go with the sample. And we didn't have that ability before, so we always had to try and remember, okay, we're supposed to be doing this
Go back
when
to
the
the
sample comes in. And this way, it'll give us a chance to put the note in there, and then when it gets checked in, then it's already in the computer system. And if it's something that maybe we wanted sample receiving to do, then like the client wanted to make sure that they were called when we got the sample, we can put that in there, and then sample receiving would know that that's what needs to be done. Is there any more? Do you want me to put something in here?
No, I would just, how about we go in, I've got a couple in there in the system, and we can look them up, and I can show you what's here.
Oh, and you see that note? Ask me if I needed to abort it. The reason being is because the commit button and the abort button are together. So now that we hit the abort button by accident, we have a second chance on it. That's a good thing.
Especially when you've done the whole.
Yeah, especially when we do wastewater.
We've only put that on certain, and we've only put that on certain screens so that it's not obnoxious to everybody.
357.
So now, if you were, you were an analyst and you wanted to review an order and see what exactly, was in the order, there's many places, different places that you can actually review, and the ones I would definitely, or you can query by, and that's either the order number. So if we had happened to give you an order number, you could go in and query by the order number. And that's what Rhonda did here to put it in. And then the other ones, you can query by any of, say query. You can query by any of the ones that aren't grayed out, correct? So you could query by ship from, status, order date, all of those things.
All the fields under ship to as well, and all the fields under in that table for organization. So you should be able to query by all the fields and the address of those organizations. So city, state, apartment suite as well.
And the ones that I would say you guys would probably most use would be the order number, the ship to, report to, bill to, and maybe, when I went in, I was trying to find some orders that had been put in recently, so I just did it by the order date, greater than such and such, so that, that works. And then the other one is the aux data. You can query by one field of the aux data. To environmental. So when you do it, you have to go in and say aux group, and then add the aux group in your query. It's not really, you're not really adding it, but you gotta get it on the screen. And then go down to project. And you can click on project name, put in WQ special. And you can only do by one of these fields. So if you have multiple ones, then you can't do it that way.
You should be able to. Did you try?
No, but I was always told that was what we only could do is one. I'll have to try it.
Yeah.
You can, I know you can, in the other screens, you can do multiple aux data fields.
You lied to all of us on that one, because that's what he told us too.
Maybe he said aux group and you heard aux field.
I don't know if anybody heard you.
What he probably meant was you can only query by one aux group at a time. You can query as many fields in that group, but only one group.
Okay, that makes a difference, and maybe that's what I didn't understand, although so does anybody have any questions on that? If you wanted to query something up, how you would have troubles doing it, or have questions on doing it? Okay, so then the other thing that I would say.
Sherry, where's the report to? If you want to query by
If you
report
want to
to,
report, go to the organization.
maybe show that.
You don't have
If
any
you're on the
issue.
query, go to query screen.
Oh, it's already there. So
You gotta change
there's
it.
a row in that table, in the
Oh,
organization
right there,
table.
click on that row. That's
Yeah.
it. And then click on the arrow,
That's what I thought.
and then you would go to whichever one you wanted to query by.
Oh, okay.
So say report to, and then go over to the name, whichever one, and put in, yeah.
There isn't any.
Should be. I had that problem once in a while.
You query, and you go in there.
It's not an autocomplete.
Not in query mode.
I mean, not included, but
If for report to,
text box.
if it's in the ship to and not in the report to, it's not gonna show up.
Right, but say report to, and then type out manual. So. I thought that's what I did earlier, and it worked.
Yeah, but if you commit it, then it's not.
Well,
Just
it could
credit
be
manual.
a report to, I mean, it could be an organization as under some other type. So if you just want to try it out just with the name instead of the type, you might be able to get something.
It's not being, it doesn't have an ownership to it.
Okay.
We'll double check it.
Doesn't really matter. But that's how you would find your report to your different ones. So if you were wanting to review a tab, the things that, if we wanted to review the actual order, yes, Karen?
I have two questions. One, okay, say I'm reviewing an order and I see something that needs to be changed. I obviously cannot change it, I don't have permissions. Do we email who and how do we get it changed? Is there a procedure or do we just email the entire client services area?
I would say you email
Email
DCO,
everybody.
Oh, okay.
and then somebody will make sure they change it.
Okay.
And
And then the second thing is, okay, you can now assign containers to a test. I know you have several bottle orders out there now that you do not have that. Are you going to go back and recapture that information, or has Matt done something wonderful?
IT will do some magic and fix all the orders to have the, according to the test definition, we'll get all the analytes set
Okay.
up, and then containers will be split out by what was already there.
Okay,
So if previously you had, say, 3 number ones, it will then split it out to 3 rows of number 1,
okay,
but it will not link any tests together.
okay.
It won't link the test to the container though.
No. It will put them all under 0.
So at least they'll be under 0, and then, you know, there may be having to move some still until we get the orders. You may still have to move tests to the right container on the ones that are already out there in case we don't get those.
But you're going to change that, right? I mean,
Only ones we can change are the recurring orders.
That's what I'm talking about.
But the
Mhm.
ones that are out there and we have no way of knowing whether they're back or not, we are not going to be able to do that.
Well, I was
Just the
thinking
recurring orders,
I
the
was
ones that
thinking like
happen every month or
limno
so.
monthly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weeklies, dailies, yearlies, those, yeah.
Okay,
The other thing, as we were looking at the test tab earlier, one of the reasonings we've been asking people to go in and check their analytes is that in this process that they are going to do, they will go and fix all the orders. As they're fixing it, it's going to update the analytes on those orders. But if those analytes don't get checked prior to them redoing this new process, all those tests that didn't have analytes checked will not have analytes checked on the orders. So that's the reasoning for really needing to get that fixed. So what I would say, if you're reviewing, some of the tabs that people would want to see when they're checking an order, you can go back to that other order, query order. Yeah, or you could do 354, this is a limno one. It would,
Have all kinds of neat stuff in it.
you know.
This is tests.
So you would want to, you know, probably want to check to make sure we have the right tests. So that you know, and then, you know, if you feel that there's a container incorrect or something, you go to the container tab.
Can you do the pop-out here?
Yeah, you can do the pop-out. And so this is when you guys are reviewing, you'd probably want to use the pop-out screen, and then you can kind of look side by side. You can't pop out the items as well, but, you know, at least you can hear, you can see what we put with it.
Sherry, you already showed one of the multi-element, examples.
I think one of these might have them multi, yeah.
This one's got a bunch on it.
So if you notice when, I
When
think,
I want those to be in new orders, we need to go and check those,
right,
On the test.
the old orders, all right?
yeah, you want to do it on the test. Analytes within the test.
I don't need to go back to the orders.
No, you don't have to fix the orders. And am I correct that that's the only one that has multi-analytes on it, because it's the only one that has a bold arrow?
No, I think that's just for the selected row.
See.
If you just highlight it.
This has got total and dissolved solids, that one's checked, that's good. This one's volatile suspended solids. This one's total suspended solids. EOD's on there. Ammonia's on there. Looks like we're all done. Now.
This isn't a test system. So anybody have any questions on this part? If you notice the items, and then under the tests,
I was wondering what the check stands for. Does that just mean it was selected under
These
that?
checks, yeah. That means these volatiles are going to be the ones that you're going to report.
I see. Just like what we do under the
Yeah.
analytical.
And if it was just B-tex, then we would only have benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, and xylene checked.
and then this is where definitely when you're reviewing your paperwork or reviewing, you know, if the customer notes or the, you know, it says benzene, toluene, or it says volatiles by 8260, but all you see is benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, xylene checked, you may want to check with us to see why there's a difference.
I had a question on the
order the analytes, I think for Alan Carr probably. Can you open that one back up, Sherry? Just wondered if it honored the order, or how are those ordered? By the order selected or something else?
From what I remember, I believe they're ordered by their sort order, the way they're defined in the test. So, yeah, because the trans shows up before that cis. So if they were ordered by name, then the cis would show up before that trans. So I believe they're ordered by the way they show up in the test. I mean, if you want, we can verify that real quick. One thing also to note is that once you check an analyte in an order, only the ones that are checked for that order show up, for that test, show up under that test. So what I mean by that is that if you have, let's say, 10 analytes for that test defined on the test screen, but if you only check 2 of those, then only those 2 will show up in that order. The other ones won't. I'm talking just about when you're not in add or update mode. So when you're just looking at the committed order and you're not trying to change it or add a new one, in that case, you'll only see the checked ones that were, those were checked previously. So that's something to know. Basically, those analytes won't go away from the test. It's just that, only those will be marked as reportable. So we didn't think that, to show the other ones would be useful.
But
I think
once,
I'm
I
sorry.
was just gonna say, once the sample comes into sample accessioning and logged in, you could check additional analytes if somebody, the client said, hey, I wanted this or this, it'll be available.
I think one way to answer the question, I think originally when this was started, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the order for the analytes were established from the old ELIS system. And I think it just got brought into this system.
Probably.
Any other questions, Ankeny?
No?
So I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. So I have, say, EPA 200.7, and I have one order that has 1 analyte, another order that has 10 analytes. I need to go into the test menu definition and say they're all reportable so that they have a chance of being checked on the order.
Yeah, I mean that their reportability can always be overridden. So it doesn't matter how they were checked in the test, you will always get a chance to change it here.
What we're actually talking about, I think, is what Don's asking is about to facilitate when we transfer this all up for the new system is have the test definitions set up the way you want the majority of the time these orders to be set up. So go into all your tests and make sure that if out of 80 analytes, 10 of them are reportable 90% of the time, those are the ones checked before we do the switchover so that all the orders get set up that way. And then for the ones that are different, we can go back or Sherry's group can go back and change them if they need to be different, or in future ones, when you add new ones, it'll pull that in by default and then you can change them.
Okay. So it doesn't have to be select reportable, the test definition to be selected later on a new one.
Correct.
The reason why I say that is because like 200.7, it's all over the place. There isn't any one combination of analytes or analyte that's going to show up.
Right, and I guess I figured that would be the case with the one like that you would have none of them checked. And we'll check them as we know which ones the client's asking for.
Yeah, I just want to make it as easiest for you guys, but I
Right.
want to make sure that, that
Now, on like the,
nobody's having to go and uncheck or check.
yeah, I mean, so Rhonda says like when you do 200.8 for SIDWA samples, that may be one that we would want to have all the IOCs checked, just because the bigger percentage of the time, those are the ones we need.
Yeah,
And we'll
that makes sense.
uncheck it when they're not used.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Lead and copper, I don't know if they got both those checked. They didn't at one time. have one that's lead and copper. The ones for the wastewater, there's a big group of them that a lot of times they're checked for non-drinking water. I can get you a list if you want me
Sure.
to know which ones I'm talking about anyway.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about, the RIPRA 8 probably, or you're talking about.
Yeah, those are it, the RIPRO 8, or the main ones, yeah,
The ones we see in wastewater, we
yeah.
okay.
We have the same problem in our section with some of the tests, in that we use some analytes from the test more than others. And we kind of have the common ones grouped together, and then the ones that aren't checked are like the supplemental, where we don't use them as frequently, but we can select them if we want to.
So you have them already checked?
Just the ones, the common ones that we want to use.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so as far as supplemental analytes go, as Terry was just mentioning it to me, it's worth mentioning that by default, they're not brought in as checked on this screen. So if you have a supplemental analyte, even if it is reportable, it won't be checked on this screen by default. But if you check it here, then it'll get added by default when you load the sample with it. So, you won't have to then go through the motion of, bringing the list of analytes and adding supplemental analytes the way you do with, in the normal cases when you want to add a supplemental analyte. So, that just should save you some time. So basically, with the supplemental analytes, that's something to, I guess, consider.
All right, any other questions? So then the other tabs, I would just say, the container, if you're getting the wrong container in, you can look at the order and see what we put on it and see, let us know to update it if you want something different. The items are what are sent out to shipping, so you don't really necessarily probably need that, and we didn't put any in here. Then you have shipping notes, which is stuff we put for central services. Then there's the customer notes. I didn't put it on this one. Tests, containers, items, shipping, send it with cooler. And then there's the customer notes, which is what we put on there for the purpose of the customer to know what tests are going to be done. This is this tab that appears on the collection form when it's mailed out to the client. So that would be what you'd see on your paperwork when you come back in. So if you ever have any questions on that, or if you wanted, I know Nancy has different times asked us to put a specific, E. coli by blah, 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 so that it's, so when the staff see it or when it comes in, it's more defined as how they want it done. So, that's always possible. And then you have the internal note, which could be, as you see, it says who put it in, and then it was, and then I mentioned something about this particular order in particular. And then sample note, client would like a 2-day rush, charge 100% surcharge. So these would be the notes that would be incorporated into the system when it comes back in. And I thought we'd show you how that appears when it comes back into the system. And then the recurring and the filled is not in this particular one, so.
I have a question.
Yep.
The question I would like to have asked right now, I might be ahead of the game, I don't know. But if we wanted to find out, you guys sent out the order, at what date it went out, where do we find that at?
Option shipping.
If you go up here to option, there's a shipping information, and it will show you whether it was sent out, and you have to log into the real system to see when.
Not necessarily.
Oh, it just needs to be a processed order, I believe.
I thought so.
Yeah, no,
Same board. I think it's a number of
Try a
process.
recurring one.
Recurring.
Yeah.
I got pending.
Pending.
That doesn't help.
Just do a
Let's
query
it
and
this way.
just do a
Yeah.
commit, and just start scrolling through and you'll find them.
Just commit.
There you go.
An option. It's not in here because nobody shipped it.
There's a couple.
It's been shipped either.
I don't know if they ever shipped any of mine here.
Barry did some of them earlier on. I think Kevin did a few of them.
But anyway, that's how you do it. You would go to that
That's how
button
I do it.
and it would pop up.
And
So
it'll
then
show
the
up the
client
shipping.
is asking.
Do the
you know,
history. Go down to history. And
History
there.
won't work, not for shipping.
That will show you if somebody from Central Services has been in there to do something with it.
This is the demo system, so.
You could open up shipping and the shipping screen.
But it will show you, I believe it shows you the
Bring up the
FedEx
shipping
number and
Go to
when it was shipped.
maintenance shipping.
Go up to the shipping.
Nope.
No,
Nope, nope.
under-
There you go.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Brings up this screen with that one.
Yeah.
And it says ship dates at the top.
So this is what you would see when you say option. Shipping.
There we go. This is the way I do it. And then you can see whether it's a pickup or whether it's UPS or they have USPS. And a lot of times when it's UPS, then there'll be a tracking number there. And if that tracking number's there, then we can go into UPS website and find out where it's at. And that comes in handy.
How did you get to the shipping window that you're at now?
Option, shipping information,
Off the
How
order
come you
screen,
couldn't find that in the earlier ones when we were looking?
because it hadn't been shipped.
because they didn't ship them. This isn't the test system, they didn't ship them. This is the one that's
We could
been
still, on the
processed.
send out order and query, pull up a client, send to or ship to, query that name, and then be able to go to options down to shipping and get this information.
Go to options and the shipping.
The only thing you have to really watch is if it's processed. If it's in pending status, it hasn't gone nowhere. If it's processed, then it's more likely it has. But if it's Joe Kelly Mangold's, you're not gonna have any shipping hardly at all, because most of his is paperwork.
And usually we put in a note in those that says for paperwork. We try to.
Sometimes. Depends on how many we have to do.
Let's see. So, I think that's all of the stuff on the screen. We can take this one and pull it up as if like we were in this, logging it in.
You gonna log it in?
Yeah.
Which one?
350.
57? Log in.
It may already be in there. Nope.
There it is.
So now if you go down to the sample notes. There's the notes that I put in from the people, and what it does is it brings it in as a note from the order, and it'll put it in as the person that's logging in the sample as the person that put it in. But it'll reference it as a note from the order. And at this point, you can't update it or anything. You can
Yes,
put-
you can.
You should be able to.
At this point, you
At
can.
this point, you can update, you can change the subject, or you can change the text altogether.
Right. Once you commit it, you can.
You know, once you
And this-
committed it, because it comes in as an internal note.
Where did I see all of the analytes and the
Test
volatiles?
results.
Third tab on. from the
This
left.
one?
Yeah, click that and then click on the volatiles test. There you go.
Okay, and then it will have the ones that were checked. Oh, cool, there they are.
And all the ones that are unchecked.
Okay. It's already checked.
And then if you look at the items, you'll see items here.
You're right there, you're already there, it's that tape over.
It's only
Sample
one
items?
test on this one, so that makes it hard to see. I was looking for different. So it's already there, 0, 15.
Yeah. On this
Did you
one.
do the pop-up? Pop-up's just the test.
This is a bigger version of it, yeah. A lot of things.
Yeah.
So I think that's all. Anybody have any questions?
Wasn't there some talk about having some kind of indicator to tell you when there's something that the sample knows?
What is it?
Like where is there, where the tab would be highlighted or something?
That's new.
So-
That comes with the new widgets and they're not here yet.
Okay.
It's a widget thing.
Did you know about?
As soon as we get all of the analytes marked on the tests that don't have them marked yet, I think there's just a handful that still need to be marked and we need to make sure.
I'd like to get it done this week.
So you're waiting on feedback
Mhm.
from other people?
Yes.
I'd like to get it done this week.
Do last week.
Up for holding and refusing samples, those organizations that are marked as that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that they did during this transfer of all the new options is that they've made it so on the organization screen, we can mark a client as hold refuse, which really just means refuse. So we've got a new policy coming out that if a client has this marked, every bottom one, it will pop up when the client sample comes in and you had in the order, when you're doing the order. And it will tell you, so you could go out and do an order and add that.
The ABC company.
It'll tell you that this client's on hold or refuse. So the new policy is that if it comes up, that means we are not to process the sample. But, before you don't do anything, we would want to clarify with John that they are still on that. But if you watch here, when she goes to add it, it's going to say, sample from this organization are to be held or refused. And so we'll go ahead and log it in, but it can go on hold status and don't process until we hear from John. You want to contact John. But what the goal is we're going to reject these samples, put a QA event on it that says due to no payment, we cannot process your sample, and we'll send results out that way. We'll also call the client to let them know that we're not able to process their sample. They may at the last minute say, I'm going to send you a check or something. So, but there's more to come on that, but that's just, if you see that, it's a little more defined rather than kind of a gray area that we've had in the past, so.
And it will be on the quick login too?
Yeah, this warning, the same one will show up, even when you're filling in a sample from an order, as well as when you're manually adding an organization.
But it won't work on fast,
There's no organization.
because there's no organization.
There's no organization on fast login, so it's anywhere you can put in an organization is where it will pop up.
Okay.
How will the analysts know?
They won't get the sample.
So,
That's part
so
of
it could still be logged in.
It can be logged in, but we'll put a QA event on it, which then we have to let you know to complete and release the sample to test. So we need to go through that whole process.
policy to be determined and process to be determined.
But you guys wouldn't even run it, so you don't,
But for quick logins,
we won't know till we do the data entry.
we've already set up a sample and utilized the reagent.
So, well, more and more those are gonna go to orders, but
Right.
all right, any questions?
Don't believe so.
All right. Marla and I plan to do actually another one of these for Robin and Royce and Kevin and stuff as a more detailed one,
Okay,
so. All right, thank you.
thank you.
No.